She woke up to pain. Claire's wrists were raw from the rope, her bare feet scraped against the dirt floor as she struggled to breathe. The smell of sweat and dust mixed with a metallic taste of blood in her mouth. She had been dragged from the small ranch house at the edge of town, dragged by a man who whispered with glee that tonight she would be the star of his game. Her body ached from the beating. Every bruise on her skin screamed louder than her voice could ever manage. He wanted her weak. He wanted her broken. And then he tied her upside down to a branch of a giant tree. The rough bark scraped against her legs as the rope tightened around her ankles. Blood rushed to her head. Her arms dangled helplessly toward the ground. The thin fabric of her dress was torn and filthy. Every movement made the cuts on her hip and thigh burn like fire. Clara whimpered, but he only laughed. He circled her slowly like a hunter, circling prey. His eyes glowed with twisted excitement. He whispered again, "This is my game. I like to watch the fear. I like to see how long they last." Clara clenched her teeth. She wanted to scream for help, but her voice cracked. With terror, the man leaned closer. He touched the rope and tugged at it with sick delight. Each pull made her swing. Gently in the fading light of dusk, the sun cast long shadows across the dry grass. In that moment, Clara realized he was not planning to kill her quickly. He wanted to watch her suffer. Every bruise, every drop of sweat, every desperate breath. He wanted it all. She thought of her family, of the quiet mornings on the ranch, of the laughter she once had, and now here she was upside down, helpless, nothing but a toy for a madman. Claire's heart pounded, her vision blurred from the blood rushing to her head. She prayed someone would pass by, anyone, but the prairie was silent except for the rustle of dry grass in the wind. The man's boots crunched closer. He pulled a knife from his belt. Not to kill, not yet. He cut a small line on her shoulder, just enough to make her cry out. He smiled as the blood trickled down. The sound of his laughter echoed across the open field. It was not human. It was pure madness. Clara closed her eyes, tears mixed with the dirt and blood on her face. She whispered to herself, "Please let this end. Please, someone, find me." Her plea disappeared into the empty air. The man walked away for a moment. He wanted to watch from the distance, to see her hang, to see her break. Claire's body shook with exhaustion. Her lips trembled as she whispered one last time, "This is his game. He will not stop." And deep inside she knew the most terrifying truth, even if she survived tonight. Would anyone ever stop a man like him? Ethan McJarry had lived 56 years under the burning sun of the West. He was not a man who looked for trouble, but trouble had a way of finding him. That evening, he was riding back from checking the far pasture. The sky was red with the last light of the day. He thought about supper. He thought about the quiet comfort of his old chair. Life at the ranch was simple, and that was just how he liked it. But then he heard something, a sound that did not belong, out there in the grasslands. It was not the call of a coyote. It was not the whistle of the wind. It was a voice. A cowboy love stories. Woman's voice, faint, broken. He pulled his horse to a stop. The old mare snored like she felt it, too. Ethan listened. There was again a cry. He turned toward the sound. Every step of the horse made his chest heavier. Something was wrong. When he reached the old oak tree, his heart sank. There she was, upside down, hanging like a deer after the hunt, blood on her face, tears streaking down, her arms limp, her dress torn. Ethan jumped from his horse so fast his knees cracked. He ran to her and grabbed her shoulders. Her eyes opened just enough to see him. She whispered, "Help me." Those two words hit him harder than any bullet ever could. He pulled the knife from his belt. The rope was thick and rough. He saw where it dug into her skin. He saw the bruises along her legs. With one sharp cut, the rope snapped. Clara fell into his arms like a broken doll. She gasped for air. Her body shook. Ethan set her gently on the ground. "Easy now. You are safe." She looked at him with wide eyes. Safe. The word almost sounded like a joke to her. She whispered again. "It was him. He plays games. He want me to die slow." Ethan felt a chill crawl up his back. He had seen men do bad things in his life, but this was something darker. He looked around the prairie. Shadows stretched long. The wind picked up dust. Western stories. He knew whoever did this was not far, and he knew one thing for certain. He would not let that man come back for her. Clara gripped his arm. Her voice cracked. "Do you think he is still here?" Ethan tightened his grip on the knife. Claire's question still hung in the air. "Do you think he is still here?" The truth was Ethan did not just think it. He felt it. That heavy quiet in the grass, that tickle at the back of the neck. It was the kind of silence old ranchers learn to trust. He stood and scanned the horizon, and then he heard it, a slow clap, the kind of clap that sends a chill right down your bones. From behind the oak tree stepped a man, tall, thin, eyes too bright, like he had not slept in days. A grin stretched across his face. "Well now," the stranger said, "looks like my game got a new player." Ethan stepped in. Wild West Stories podcast. Front of Clara. He held the knife low. His voice was steady. "You best keep walking, friend." The man laughed. He twirled his own blade like it was a toy. "You cut my rope," he said. "That was my rope, my tree, my fun." Clara whimpered and pulled herself closer to Ethan's boots. Ethan's jaw tightened. He had seen killers in saloons and drifters, with nothing left to lose. But this was different. This one enjoyed the suffering. The man lunged. Ethan sidestepped and shoved him hard in the ribs. The two men crashed against a tree. Dust flew. Blades flashed. It was not fancy. It was not pretty. It was survival. Ethan took a punch to the gut, but swung back harder. The stranger staggered, wiped the blood from his lip, and laughed again. "You ain't one." "Not yet," he hissed. Ethan raised his knife, but the man darted into the tall grass and was gone. The silence returned. Only the sound of Claire's ragged breath filled the space. Ethan helped her to her feet. "You are safe now," he said. Again, though he was not sure he believed it. Claire looked into his eyes. Her voice cracked. "He will come back." "I know it." Ethan nodded slowly. "Maybe so, but next time he won't find you alone." Ethan's weathered face showed the lines of a man who had lived too long in a land that gave no mercy. The lines of a man who had lived too long in a land that gave no mercy. He helped Clara onto the horse. As they rode back toward town, the night closed in behind them, and the question remained: how? Long before that madman strikes again? Ethan and Claire have survived the first test, but the law must now take its turn. In the next part, we will see the sheriff and the town decide what to do with a man like Silas Crow. So if you Wild West romance movies want to follow this story, make sure you subscribe right now and don't miss what comes next. The ride back to town was slow. Clara leaned against Ethan, her body still weak from hanging too long. Every step of the horse jarred her ribs, but she stayed quiet. Her eyes never stopped scanning the dark prairie behind. Ethan spoke soft. You are safe. Now, the law will take care of him. Clara nodded, but her grip on his arm said as she was not convinced. By the time they reached the sheriff's office, the oil lamps were glowing in the windows. Sheriff Tom Dillard was a heavy man with tired eyes. He listened as Ethan told him everything. How he found Clara hanging in the oak tree. How Silas Crow had stepped out of the shadows, grinning like a demon. How they fought, and how Silas ran. The sheriff scratched his chin. Sound like Crow's finally gone too far, he muttered. Within the hour, a small posy rode out. By morning, they had Silas and Irons dragged right back into town. Clara flinched when she saw him. He winked at her through the bars like it was all still a joke. At the hearing the next day, folks from town filled the room. Ethan stood beside Clara as she told her story. Every word made her tremble, but she held her head high. The bruises on her skin were proof enough. The judge leaned forward. Silas Crow, you have been a menace in this territory long enough. Silas smirked, but then the gavel came down and the sentence was read. Not prison, not even a whipping, just a fine, a warning, and a promise to stay out of trouble. The room erupted with whispers. Clara gasped. That is all she whispered to Ethan. Ethan's jaw clenched tight. That is the law, he said, though his voice carried no faith in it. Clara felt the sting of injustice more than the bruises on her body. She looked at Silas one last time. He only smiled wider, as if the law itself was part of his twisted game. On the walk out of the courthouse, Clara spoke. He will do it again. You know it, and I know it. Ethan did not answer right away. He stared at the wide-open sky above the street, his hand resting on the hilt of his knife. Sometimes the law was too slow for the frontier. Sometimes justice had to find another way. And deep down, Ethan knew the story was far from over. Clara may have been saved and Silas may have been warned. But evil does not fade so easy. So what will happen when the rancher and the young woman find themselves face again with a man who refuses to stop? The days that followed were quiet, at least on the surface. Claire stayed at Ethan's ranch, rested in a small room that smelled of cedar and fresh hay. Her bruises slowly faded, but the memory of that night stayed sharp. Every time the wind rattled the barn door, she flinched. Every time a shadow moved across the window, she held her breath. Ethan noticed. He never said much, but he made sure she never felt alone. He brought her water, cooked her meals, and even told her small stories from his years on the trail. Claire found herself smiling at moments she thought she had lost forever. There was something steady about him, like the land itself. The more time they spent together, the more she realized he was not just a man who cut her free. He was a man who gave her hope again. One evening they stood by the corral, watching the horses graze. In the fading light, the sky turned gold and purple, and the air grew still. Claire whispered, I thought I was finished that night. Ethan glanced at her. You were strong enough to hold on, strong enough to be here now. She lowered her eyes. Sometimes I wonder, why? Why did it have to happen at all? Ethan sighed. Out here, the world is not fair. The law does not always protect us. But every time we stand back up, every time we keep living, we take something away from the darkness. His words lingered in the air like a prayer. Claire leaned against the fence, and for the first time since that terrible night, she felt a flicker of peace. It was not just survival anymore. It was the beginning of something new. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was simply two souls who had been tested by fire and found each other in the ashes. But whatever it was real, and it was enough to keep her moving forward. Now the question is, what do we take from their story? Do we let fear control us, or do we rise even when the odds are against us? Clara and Ethan remind us that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to keep going in spite of it. If this story touched you, give it a like and share it with someone who needs a little strength today. And make sure to subscribe so you do not miss the next tale from the Wild West. Because sometimes the most ordinary people carry the most extraordinary courage. The night grew darker. The prairies stretched endless before them. And though Clara was safe for now, one thought lingered in her heart. She turned to Ethan and whispered softly, "Do you think there's a chance he might come back? Maybe one day when we least expect it. Could he be out there waiting? Has the game truly ended?